Well, today's episode, it's going to be a lot funner than we expected. We're going to be reviewing Ring of Honor Final Battle. Will we see title changes? I don't know, but that's going to be interesting to review. We also got NXT Deadline for the first ever Iron Survivors Challenge between the men's and women's. So, who will be our number one contenders, the challenge for the NXT title and the NXT women's title? And of course, the NXT tag team titles will be on the line. And we got a special grudge match between Isla Dawn and Alba Fire. And of course, we'll end it up with New Japan Strong with week 2 of Detonation. There's going to be some interesting match, but however, the main event features the collaboration between both of Team Filthy and Bullet Club taking on GOD members Hikuleo and Tamatanga and teaming up with David Finlay and Alan Angels. There will be no news updates for today, but let's get started with another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to the Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, let's begin with Ring of Honor Final Battle. As you know, this is the last Ring of Honor pay-per-view. Now, as you know, we anticipate for the upcoming Ring of Honor television that we've been expecting. Now, we haven't heard anything new about that, but I am willing to spoil this early for everyone. It was announced that the Ring of Honor Honor Club is back, so you can subscribe for $9.99 to watch some of the classic matches, about 2,500 hours worth of video content of Ring of Honor. Just putting it out there for all of you if you're interested in doing that. Now we normally don't do the pre-shows, the 0 hour, so we're going to do that anyway for this particular. Our first match, we have Máscara Dorada taking on United Empire's Jeff Cobb, who we haven't seen quite some time since he got injured at the match against our FTR. But it was a pretty good match. This one is between strength and versus speed, so that kind of puts out in the way. But however, it was a tour of the islands by Jeff Cobb to put away Máscara Dorada. Now our next match, we have tag team action. We got the Shinobi Shadow Squad, Eli Ism and Cheeseburger taking on the members of the Jericho Appreciation Society, Daddy Magic, Matt Menard, and Cool Hands, Angelo Parker. Now, this particular match, it fell in the favor of the Jericho Appreciation Society due to the fact that they were able to isolate Cheeseburger long enough for him not to tag Eli. But however, when Cheeseburger did that, he was able to pull it. But it was the double team between Menard and Parker that sealed the deal that had them to win the match. Now our third match of the 0 hour, we have Trish Adora taking on Willow Nightingale. I have to say it was a really good match. Even though it was in the 0 hour, I have nothing against it, but Willow Nightingale has always been impressive to watch. I have seen Trish Adora many times over wrestling, but this one fell in the favor of Willow Nightingale when she applied the Dr. Bomb. 1, 2, 3, it's over. In our final match of the 0 hour, we have Top Flight, Dante Martin, and his brother Darius taking on the Kingdom, Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, along with Maria. I thought this was a pretty good match. Now, keep in mind, you got the younger generation of wrestlers taking on the veterans. That is a very good storytelling. But however, the X factor in this match is Maria. Now, you know the main weapon that Dante Martin always applies is, of course, the nosedive. But Maria got involved. But her biggest mistake is putting her hands on the official that forced her to go on the other side. But that doesn't end there. Somehow the top flight able to pull off a very interesting maneuver. Darius Martin had Mike Bennett right there on his shoulders, maneuver for Dante Martin to do a nosedive while Mike Bennett was on top of the shoulders of Darius, and 1, 2, 3, Top Flight made their biggest win, their first ever win in Ring of Honor, taking on the veterans, the Kingdom. Now, our next match is part of the main card of Ring of Honor Final Battle. We have Rouge with his brother Dralistico, along with Preston Vance, no longer 10, along with that weasel, Jose the assistant. They take on the veteran AR Fox. He teams up with All Heart Blake Christian. Now, this match, you know how Rouge is. He's very aggressive. He likes to bring down. He doesn't care about the rules. He doesn't play by the rules. But however, there's kind of a bit of a controversy over this particular match. Now, AR Fox applied a 450 splash onto Dralistico, but there was a moment where he kicked out on 3, and apparently the ref called it. So basically, the match ended in RA Fox and Blake Christian to win. However, in the post match, apparently Rouge and Dralistico decided to beat down both Fox and Christian as a punishment for their win. But they did say they don't care about it, but apparently they feel like this was a highway robbery for them. We don't know if that was the extent. I'm sure we're going to get back to that at some point. Now, our next match is a title match. We have the ROH Women's Championship between Athena versus Mercedes Martinez. Now, there's a lot of history between these two ladies dating back all the way to Shimmer. Now, as you may have remembered or heard, or you haven't heard, noticed, Mercedes Martinez did stated that she was the one who created Athena. So it was more like this is the mother of her life that in professional wrestling. But however, this is more of the case. Now keep in mind, Athena had a mean streak for about a few months now, going by beating up everyone until Mercedes Martinez made her presence known and issued the challenge. I have to say this is one of those brutal matches ever. But however, when we assumed that, of course, Mercedes had everything under control, somehow Athena was able to counter the border, the that one. I forgot what she called. Mercedes calls the move. Athena was able to, of course, block it, but in the process, she was able to put the O face, which is of course the Eclipse, onto Mercedes Martinez, and 1, 2, 3, brand new Ring of Honor Women's Champion. So we have one title change, so we'll see how the others will do. Now, our next match, we have a bit of an old grudge match between Shane Taylor and Keith Lee. So Shane Taylor teams up with JD Griffey, while Keith Lee teams up with Swerve Strickland. Now, the history between these two, what I never knew about, it turns out that Keith Lee and Shane Taylor were in line for an ROH tag team titles, but however, due to the circumstances, Keith Lee just bailed and disappeared, and leaving Shane Taylor high and dry. So basically, that was the whole story of what it is. But things were pretty interesting until somehow Keith Lee misfired and knocked down Swerve Strickland. Now, we went back to Deja Vu, if you guys remember clearly, back in, I believe it was Full Gear. Keith Lee walked out on Swerve Strickland, and now we see the same thing again. But, however, Keith Lee was able to win the match all by himself, but it did allow him to win. So we don't know what's the extent of the relationship between Strickland and Lee. I'm sure there's probably the signs that Swerve and our lawyer are gonna completely die out. So we'll see when that happens. Now, our next match, we have the World Six-Man Tag Team titles. We have the Embassy, Brian Cage, the Gates of Agony, Toa Leona, and Bishop Khan taking on Dalton Castle and the boys. Now, as you know, Dalton Castle issued this challenge to the Embassy, and this is for. But what I did like is how Brian Cage had custom-made gear made for him in memory of his mentor and friend Chris Canyon, so that was pretty nice. But it did showed how strong an embassy have been becoming. But it was, of course, a very interesting power bomb on one of the boys that allowed them for the embassy to become our brand new ROH World Six Man Tag Team Champions. So that means we have two title changes in this particular day. Now, our next thing we have is an interview with Top Flight. Now, as you know, Top Flight has now made headways taking on, of course, the Kingdom. But however, the JSA members, Matt Menard and Angelo Parker, they're sick to the stomach that they're not being interviewed. They feel like that big deal that they beat the Kingdom, they beat the Shinobi Shadow Squad. Now, the way we see it in this storyline, the Kingdom are a much higher profile than the Shinobi Shadow Squad. As you know, they have been one of the best tag teams in the world, and I think that's what Menard did not like. But they decide to brawl the moment because Menard always is a loudmouth. Sooner or later, someone's gonna shut him up. But later, they took this fight outside to the ring until all men were wiped out by Dante Martin. So we could see a possible feud between Menard and Parker against Top Flight. Now our next match is the ROH Pure Championship. Now, as you remember, Wheeler Yuta lost its title to Daniel Garcia. Garcia claims that he's going to hurt um, Wheeler Yuta in every way possible. But if, like always, Wheeler Yuta ran out of his rope breaks, so basically he had nothing to show for. Basically, that was going to be it. However, it did not stop Wheeler Yuta no matter what. He was determined to bring the win back, the Pure Championship. But one thing led to another. He had Garcia right where he wanted him when he applied the elbows on the neck of his side, where Garcia was defenseless, and the ref had no other choice but to call it, and the match won straightforward to Wheeler Yuta becoming a two-time Pure Champion. So that means the Blackpool Combat Club has one belt in their pocket. So that makes it right now three title changes. Now our next match is the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles in a double collar match between the Briscoes and FTR. Now this is the third installment of a trilogy between these two teams. If you guys remember, it was the Briscoes it was the FTR who defeated the Briscoes in a traditional match. However, the second match, it was a I forgot what it was, but of course, but this match was brought upon by the Ass Boys, who are sick and tired of FTR because they're cementing their legacy as the best tag team. But this match, this dog collar match, was the most brutal match ever. Everything was using the chains as a weapon, pulling their opponents into the hard places, landing on tables. Oh my goodness. But however, it was, of course, Mark Briscoe that applied a crossface by using the chain onto Dax Harwood, forcing him not to tap out, but he passed out before he does anything. This became the loud where now the Briscoes are the 13-time Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. And you can say that this was a good run for FTR. Some things had to come to an end. But however, that thing doesn't end there. Once again, the Ass Boys, the Gun Club, shows up and attacks them. They're sick and tired of their legacy. They're saying they're going to kill it. But once they were about to continue with the beatdown, apparently the Briscoe shows up. But Dax Harwood's made it clear they got their attention. They've been ignoring the Ass Boys for this long, but this time it's personal. So we're gonna see what happens then. The Ass Boys claim they are the best tag team, but we know they haven't won any tag team titles. We know the FTR are the far more better tag team than them. So we'll see how this feud is gonna keep on going, then on and then on. Our next match, we have the World Television title. We have Juice Robinson versus Samoa Joe. Now this is the first time these two has ever met, but keep in mind, Juice Robinson is the most aggressive person ever since joining the Bullet Club. He is determined to dethrone Samoa Joe, who's now the self-proclaimed king of television. That's basically because he cemented the Ring of Honor World Television title on certain occasions. But this match was so brutal, but it took two muscle busters by Samoa Joe to put away Juice Robinson to retain the title. So that means this is one title that has not exchanged. Now, our main event is, of course, the Ring of Honor World Championship. Challenger, the former Ring of Honor World Champion, Claudio Castagnoli, taking on the Ocho, Chris Jericho. Now, the stipulation, if you guys remember, if Claudio loses this match, he has no other choice but to join the Jericho Appreciation Society. I thought this match was pretty good. I loved how Claudio was determined to win back, but once again, we knew that those dirtbags, Menard and Parker, were going to show up. Now, they brought the bat, Floyd, to ensure. This is the same kind of maneuver we saw with Jericho on many occasions, but this time Claudio kicked out. And because they got Parker and Menard got in the way, referee threw them out of ringside. So it's like, thank God. But that does not end there. But what later became memorable, if you guys know, the swing around that Claudio does every time, he actually hold Jericho doing the swing 33 seconds or so. But it did force Jericho to tap out. I don't know how. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen with Claudio. I have to say it was one of the best memorable moments of seeing him win this match in this way. And now Ring of Honor is back and Honor is back where it finally belongs after being desecrated by Jericho. So we'll see what happens then. Now we haven't figured out what's going to happen with the television thing. I'm sure there's going to be the media scrum. I haven't got the chance to look at it, but I will be talking about it on the next episode. So I think that's pretty much it for Ring of Honor. I believe it's time for NXT Deadline. Okay, NXT Deadline, brand new show from NXT. I was excited, and of course, I was excited how they opened up the show with the Women's Iron Survivors Challenge. It opened up with both Roxanne and, of course, Zoe Starks in it. Now, the rules are simple. It starts out with two. Every 5 minutes, a new challenger comes in until all challengers are there, all five. However, whenever there's a pinfall or submission, there will be a 90-second penalty in the penalty box. So that's how it's going to be. So it was pretty interesting. So it started with this is how the wrestlers came out in order: Roxanne Perez, Zoe Starks, Kiana James, Cora Jade, and Indy Hartwell. Now, this is how this whole thing maneuvered the entire day of the Iron Survivor Series. Zoe Starks pinned Roxanne, that gives her 1 point. Cora Jade pinned Kiana, gave herself a point. Same thing with Indy Hartwell when she pinned Roxana. So that makes her, she went the penalty box. But this is where everything changed. Roxanne pinned Zoe Starks, and then after that, later on, she pinned Cora. Now, keep in mind, the match goes on for 25 minutes, but Cora Jade was able, I mean, Roxanne was able to hold on. The moment she realized the 25 minutes were up, she becomes our number one contender. But what makes it so interesting is Booker T. Now, if you guys know this or not, Roxanne trained at the Reality Wrestling, where Booker T's promotion. You can tell by the sound of his voice that he's like a proud father seeing one of his students win a very memorable moment. So that means Roxanne is on her way. Many people have talked about this already in the past. They believe that it should be Roxanne who will dethrone Mandy Rose. So we will see what happened this coming Tuesday when it hits. Now, our next thing we have is an interview with Ivy Nile and Tatum Paxley. Now, we know that she's dealing with what's been going on with the Creed brothers. The Creed brothers have been coming stubborn as hell. They're not 100% fine after beatdown, but of course, she's looking out for everyone. As for Kaden Carter and they apparently feel bad. They understand their feeling, but they told them not to put their guard down. Not as a warning, but as more let them know. Don't let her niceness get try to think that they're going to be friends. But however, once again, there was a feud between Ivy and later on in the day with Gigi Dolan and of course Tatum Paxley. Because if you guys remember, this is not the first time that Gigi Dolan and Jay-Z Jane believes those titles are meant to be turned back to them. They believe that sooner or later they're going to rerun the whole thing again. So we will see those two teams face off. I wouldn't be surprised if that match becomes a number one contendership for the NXT Women's Tag Team titles. Now our next match is a grudge match between Isla Dawn and Alba Fire. Now, if you remember completely, Alba Fire had this match won against Mandy Rose at Halloween Havoc, but Isla Dawn interfered, got in the way. But however, when things seems like it was going in favor of Alba Fire, somehow Isla Dawn was able to get away by missing the ref. He was out of it. It took another ref to show up and make things, but however, the ref did not see what happened. There was a middle corner buckle safety was removed. Isla Dawn used that in her advantage, and then of course she did a somewhat of a rabbit hole maneuver onto Alba Fire to pick up the win. Now, do I think this is going to be the end between Alba Fire and Isla Dawn? No. For Alba Fire, she may think it's over, but for Isla Dawn, if she thinks it's over, I don't think Alba Fire is going to let that go. Now, our next interview is the New Days. Now, people asked questions. Now, we always have people say, why do we need New Day? But they did make a fantastic point. They never held the NXT tag team titles. So they feel if they win these tag team titles, they become triple crown tag team champions. They already held the Raw tag team titles, the SmackDown, but NXT, that will make them triple crown champions regardless. And what better way is by doing it with the best competition they have is pretty deadly. I thought this match between them was amazing. Not to mention, we have shades of Eddie Guerrero. We lie, we steal, we shield. They actually tried to use the belt. It did not work. But when we thought Pretty Deadly thought they got away by using the belt, they used it on Xavier Woods. They thought it was over. No, Xavier Woods got out of it. Shocking, Pretty Deadly. Now, apparently they had Xavier Woods ready for spilled milk until Kofi Kingston gave, I think it was, what was his name? Britt's a Trouble in Paradise, giving time to put away Wilson and become our brand new NXT Tag Team Champions. I thought it was fantastic. So that makes them a Triple Crown Champions. I can't wait to see what's going to happen on NXT. I'm sure we're going to see those whiners Pretty Deadly complain about it. Now our next match is the Men's Iron Survivor Challenge. It opened up with Janie McDonough and versus Axiom. That's the order it started. Then we have Carmelo Hayes and Grayson Waller, and then finally Joe Gacy. But however, things got really intense the way it seems. Now, Hayes made the first pin on Axiom, giving him his next point. But Waller picked up a very impressive pinfall by pinning both McDonough and Axiom, giving him 2 straight points. And then after that, Axiom did the same thing with Waller and McDonough. The same thing. It was so intense. Then, of course, we have Gazy. He submitted Axiom, giving him an opportunity. But however, there was a moment where McDonough was trying to keep Axiom in the penalty box, but it did not stop him there. But it kept continuing. But it did not stop there. Gacy pinned Hayes, giving him another 2 points in the process. And as for the next pin was Hayes on Waller, giving him 2 points. So basically, all except for Janie McDonough had 2 points. McDonough has not picked up any points. It's the same thing we saw with Kiana James, but however, Waller was the one who picked up the final pin onto Axiom when he had almost maybe less than a minute, maybe less than 30 seconds to spare. But his strategy, it was genius for him out of his part. He decided to run around in circles to ensure they would not pin. Everybody were chasing him with their heads cut off. But once the time limit of 25 minutes was done, Instantly, Grayson Waller became our brand new NXT, our number one contender for the NXT championship. So this is going to be very interesting. I'm sure the other competitors are not happy how this turned out. But Waller, he always finds a way to be a snake in the grass, try to get away with everything. So we'll see what happens this coming Tuesday. Now our main event, as you know, we have the our next interview we have Drew Gulak. Now, if you guys remember, Drew Gulak made his presence known on NXT. We don't know. It looks more like he was scouting the competition. However, he was approached by Damon Kemp saying that he is enrolling in Chase University. That's kind of interesting, but I'm sure we're gonna see what Drew Gulak is. He says he's back to this. It's kind of interesting. I don't think Gulak has never been a lot more in, of course, on the NXT brand. He normally spends much of his time with when it was 205 Live, but we'll see what happens then. Now our main event is the NXT Championship. We have Apollo Crews taking on Braun Breaker. What a match! It showed a lot of great moments, strength, and ability. But however, we were thinking, will this fall into favor of Apollo Crews? No. Braun Breaker has shown that he's been a true fighting champion since he became the NXT champion on two occasions. But it took only a spear for him to put away Apollo Crews for him to retain the title. Now, however, once again, the snake in the grass, um, Waller attacked by applying the Waller effect onto him, sending a direct message that this is his time, that he believes he'll be the one to dethrone the Braun Breaker. So we will see what happens on this coming Tuesday and what Braun Breaker will have to say for what Waller did. So I think that's pretty much it with NXT. It's time for our final review, and that's going to be New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong, that week 2 on Detonation. Okay, our final review, New Japan Strong, with week 2 of Detonation. Now, as you know, we always seen the opener between both Alex Kozlov and Ian Riccaboni, but they were surprised by Ian Riccaboni. He's sending a clear message to the LA Dojo, so it looks like he is cementing his own warning to them. Now, keep in mind, if you remember his partner Yuya Umura, he decimated him after certain mistakes took place when they were tag team champions. But we will see Christopher Daniels being in the ring against the DKC. Now, our opening match, we have Gregory Sharp taking on Kenny King. This was a pretty interesting match. We have a Gregory Sharp who has a bit of the technical aspect versus a guy who has more of the agility, and I think that sets it out. I think it was a pretty good match, but however, in this moment, it was Kenny King who was able to maneuver all of it and turn it into a royal flush finisher onto Gregory Sharp. 1, 2, 3, impressive win. So this is his second win so far since he debuted in New Japan Strong. Now our next match is the DKC versus Christopher Daniels. Now you probably can guess that DKC put up a fight against Daniels in every aspect. If you guys remember, Daniels did put out a warning to send out a clear message to the LA Dojo, so DKC is the guy. But it only took the best moonsault ever by Daniels to finish him off. But however, apparently he decided to beat DKC even further, send a clear message to the LA Dojo. So we will know who will respond to him, but we'll see on that when that day comes. Now our main event, we have the West Coast Wrecking Crew, Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs teaming up with the members of the Bullet Club, Al Fantasmo and Jay White, to take on Alan Angels, David Finlay, and the Gorillas of Destiny, Hikuleo and Tama Tonga. Now you know there's history between the GOD and Bullet Club due to the fact that, of course, Tama was betrayed by Jay White, and of course Hikuleo turned his back on Bullet Club to be closer to his brothers. Now you can tell there were some moments that things could have been fallen to favor in the Western Wrecking Crew and the Bullet Club. But one thing that it was pretty clear, I liked how Alan Angels was able to try to focus the attention on him, that give time for, of course, um, Tama Tonga to be calculated. The best moment is near the end when, of course, when Jarrell Nelson had Tama Tonga in his shoulder, setting up into a powerbomb to toss him to Jarrell Nelson to apply the German suplex, but somehow Tama was able to turn that into a gun stun. He surprised everyone, but he also put a gun stun on Jarrell Nelson. One, two, three, it's done. I'm sure the West Coast Wrecking Crew and Bullet Club are not happy with the results, but it is what it is. Of course, Bobby Fish, who was there on the side of West Coast Wrecking Crew, we'll just find out what happened then. And I think that's pretty much it with what we have for today. Like I said before, we don't have any news updates. And I think it's time to call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, we have more Choco Pro and New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I think this is the last leg of the World Tag League. We will find out who will make it to the finals, as we already know who made to the finals in the Junior Tag League. So I'm excited for that. Now, if there's any other wrestling events taking place, I know for a fact this weekend, we do have two Stardom shows called the Year Round Tour. As you know, we're getting closer and closer to the end of 2022. And if there's any other wrestling events that I haven't checked out yet, I'll put those too. And I'll be talking more about the media scrums as well that took place at Ring of Honor. And I think that's pretty much it what we have for today. I will see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day.